This session will explain the calculation options that can be used to generate the optimal order when running the suggested order calculation program through menu path B2. When B2 is accessed, after entering the clerk code and either bypassing or selecting a saved library, the first screen that displays is the ordering options screen. The fields on this screen are covered in the ordering options video. My recommendation is that you watch and understand that video prior to watching this one. Clicking or pressing home returns you to the program's main screen. The calculation options button is in the lower right corner. Click on it or press C to access that screen. The screen is divided into three sections. The top box contains fields used to set up the parameters for ordering using the two order point methods. In addition, there are options that can be used to fine-tune the order quantities for all ordering methods. The middle box contains fields used to set up parameters for ordering based on the formula method. The bottom box has fields for generating extended values to be included in the order output. Based on the ordering method selected on the ordering options screen, the program will give you access to only those fields that you need. Let's begin with the setup for the three different ordering methods. I will now pull up a library job that I saved with the single order point method of ordering, and I will go to the calculation options screen. A reminder from the ordering method video, the rule for this method is if the total quantity falls below the order point, then order up to that same order point. The cursor starts at the first quantity field. We could tell the program simply to look at the current quantity on hand. However, we will get a more accurate order if that quantity is the sum of multiple values. For example, the amount currently on hand, plus how much is already on order, plus how much is possibly on vendor back order. You don't want to order something if it is already on order, even if it's with a different vendor. The designators of the fields containing those values are to be entered in the quantity fields. Note that there are 5 fields, but they do not all need to be used. The cursor then goes to the single order point field, where you will enter the designator of the one order point field to be used. Now I'm going to escape, select the library job that I created using the min-max order point method, and go to that calculation screen. The quantity field prompts are the same. But notice now that the single order point method field is grayed out. The cursor goes to the two min-max fields so that you can enter the designators of those two fields. Another reminder from the ordering options video, the rule for this ordering method is, if the total quantity falls below the minimum, then order up to the maximum. Now I'm going to escape one more time and select the library job that I saved with the formula method. And I'm going to go to that calculation options screen. Again, the quantity field prompts are the same, but now notice that all of the order point fields have been grayed out, and the cursor goes to the order quantity cap field. We will come back to it and the following few fields in just a few minutes. But now I'm going to move the cursor to the middle box to enter the formula parameters. The arithmetic formula used in this program is basically the same as the one used to generate new order points through menu path D5E. So when you run this order generation program using the formula method, what you are really doing is creating order points on the fly. There is a separate video on reorder level calculation that I recommend you watch. You can enter up to 5 sales periods. In this example, I have entered the last 3 full months. So I started with last month and then the 2 months prior to that. But you could use weekly fields, different monthly fields, quarterly fields, yearly fields, calculated rolling months, or any combination of those fields. They are all found on the Inventory Display Movement History page, accessed via menu selections C or D3. The fields under the sales periods provide a way to weight the fields differently. This can be very useful for seasonal items, but for everything else, all entered sales fields should be weighted equally, and the program will do that for you automatically. Regardless of which sales periods you have selected, whether it's a yearly field, a quarterly field, or a monthly field, the calculation always looks at the numbers in terms of weeks. So once you have entered all of the sales fields you want to consider, you then have to tell the program how many weeks those sales periods represent. Because I entered 3 full months, the number of weeks is 13. If I had entered the current month and the next 2 months, and if it was 1 week into the current month, then the number of weeks would be 10. The cursor then goes to the minimum number of weeks you want to keep on hand, and then the maximum number of weeks. The formula looks at sales history, translated into sales units for the specified number of weeks, and at the desired minimum and maximum weeks of supply on hand. The result is an order quantity, which is then compared to the total calculated quantity to result in a suggested order. If, as you are setting up these fields, you do not know what the designators are, you can click on the yellow Help button at the bottom of the screen. This will pop up a window listing all of the fields in the inventory table. You can use F1 and F2 to scroll through the list. You can also press F5 and search for specific wording, which will narrow the search. At this point, I would just like to say a quick word about types of inventory formats. SBC supports 3 types of formats: a single store format, a multi-store format, and what we call an STR format. A single store format is pretty self-explanatory. It is installed on systems running SBC to support a single location. A multi-store format is installed on systems running usually 8 or fewer locations. An STR format is installed on systems supporting more than 8 locations. The reason the format type is important is because it affects the format of the inventory field designators, which are always 3 characters in length. Single store and STR formats have the same type of designators. For all fields, all 3 characters make up a code that stand for the field name. In other words, the designator for quantity on hand is always QOH. The designator for quantity on order is QOO. The fact that there are multiple quantity on hand fields or quantity on order fields on systems with more than a single location is handled by the STR file. The designators in multi-store formats are structured differently. For any field that contains store-specific data, the 3rd character of the designator is a store ID, or the 1st character of a store ID. For example, quantity on hand for store 1 is QH1. Quantity on hand for store XYZ is QHX. If, when you click on the Help button to get the list of fields, you see that the designator for the quantity on hand is QOH, then you know that you have either a single store format or an STR format. In either case, the designator to use is simply QOH. If, when you click on the Help button to get the list of fields, you see that the designator for the quantity on hand for store 1 is QH1, then you know that you have a multi-store format. When you set up the fields on the B2 screen, you can create separate saved library entries for each store by using each store's specific field designators, for example, QH1 and QO1. Or you can create a saved screen that will work for any store. Instead of using the specific store ID as the third character of the field, replace it with a question mark, as I did on this screen. The software knows to replace the question mark with the ID of the store for which the order is being created. Now to the fields that can fine-tune the order for both the order point methods and the formula method. The order quantity cap field can be important if you create orders using sales history and if you occasionally sell huge quantities of particular products, perhaps because of very low pricing. For example, your vendor offers a fantastic price if you purchase a truckload of something. You do, and you price it very nicely, so you sell the entire truckload. As a result, your sales history is very inflated, and although you order based on sales history, you do not want to order another truckload. On those specific products, you can set up a field as the order cap field with the value of the largest amount you would want to purchase. Then enter the designator of that cap field in B2 following the order quantity cap field caption. If you hold back orders for customers, then the next field, the customer back order field, is important. You do not want to receive a supplier order and then immediately deplete your new stock filling customer back orders. By entering the designator of your customer back order field on this screen, you are telling the software to order extra product over and above what it thinks that you need based on the selected ordering method to cover the back orders. The next two fields, package flag field and package quantity, are critical to creating an order that will be accepted by the supplier. The issue is how that supplier sells the product to you compared to how you sell it to your customers. If you both sell everything that you buy from the supplier by the each, then there is no reason to use the package flag or package quantity fields. The fields can be left blank on the B2 screen. If the supplier only sells some items by the box, but you break down the boxes and sell by the each, then you must tell this program to look at both package flag and package quantity. The package flag field on the inventory record would contain, for example, the word box, and the package quantity field would contain the quantity in each box. The program will calculate how many eaches you need based on the selected order method. Then the logic will divide that amount by the package quantity, applying the half or more rule to determine whether or not to round up. The result will be the quantity of packages to be ordered. If the supplier sells you some items in individual units, but only in multiples of a specific quantity, then you must set up the package quantity field. The package flag field on the B2 screen in this case can be left blank, but the package quantity field must be entered, and on the inventory records involved, must contain the required quantity. The program will calculate how many units are needed based on the selected ordering method. Then the logic will apply the required multiple again, using the half or more rule to determine whether or not to round up. There is one additional piece to this puzzle. If the supplier sells boxes of 6, and based on sales history, you need 2, because of the half or more rule, none would be ordered, unless you set a flag on the manufacturer record that says to always round up on first package. Refer to the video on manufacturer management for more information. SBC actually maintains 2 quantities for every item on an order in the order file. The first, called PCS, contains the number of pieces or eaches needed, and the field called ORD contains the number of packages. These 2 fields will be the same unless the package flag is non-blank, that is, unless the supplier only sells in a package unit. If there are 4 to a box, the order may be for 24 pieces, PCS, with an order quantity, ORD, of 6. When you print the PO or email a PO to that supplier, you want to be sure to send the ORD quantity, not the PCS quantity. It is very important to get this set up correctly to ensure that you receive the correct quantities from your supplier. Notice that the field to reset lost sales after ordering is grayed out. That is because the ordering options screen is set to create a worksheet. If it was set up to create a PO, then this field would be accessible. A Y in this field will trigger the program to zero out the defined lost sales field on all items that are ordered. Many SBC customers prefer creating worksheets and prefer tracking lost sales for the quarter or the year rather than from order to order. When the order quantity is being calculated, if a vehicle quantity field has been defined and populated, the calculation will round the order quantity up to cover vehicle quantity. For example, if the vehicle quantity is 6 and the calculated order quantity based on the formula method is 16, the order quantity will be rounded up to 18 unless this field is set to Y. In that case, it will ignore the vehicle quantity. The fields for pipeline quantity are grayed out because the setup hasn't been done to support that, and there is a separate video that explains all of the setup and functionality of pipeline ordering. The last topic to discuss under calculation options is the target ordering in the lower right corner of the formula box. Here's the scenario. It is the end of the quarter. You get a rebate from the supplier if you exceed a certain total spent for the period. For example, $5,000. Your purchases to date total $3,800. When you run your standard min-max order point calculation set up for that supplier, the total order comes to $869. You want to get the rebate, so before the quarter is over, you want to place one last order worth at least $1,200. To do this, you need to use the formula method. You list the sales periods that you want to consider, but instead of specifying the minimum or maximum weeks on hand, you set up target criteria. In this case, it would be dollars with a starting value of $1,200. The other requirement for this procedure is that you must be creating a worksheet, not a purchase order. By setting the starting weeks on hand, you establish a starting point. The program will crunch the numbers, calculate an order, and compare the order total to the target amount. If it is below the target, the logic will add 1 to the starting number of weeks on hand and will run again. If the resulting order total is still below the target, the logic will add one more to the number of weeks and run again. It will keep running until an order that meets the target criteria is generated. Note that you can also set up tolerance levels. So, for example, it won't go too far above the target amount. And besides dollars, the target criteria can also be either units, weight, or gallons. You probably won't use this feature often, but when you need it, it is so useful. This concludes the session on PO calculation options. If you have any questions or comments, please contact SBC Customer Support. Thanks, and have a great day.